great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail. Welcome back to another episode of The Secret World of Events. Joining me today is Jay Sands, the owner and founder of Gen Z Events, and he in turn has invited Harry Portman, who happens to be a DJ and also Jay's best friend. Welcome along, chaps. Jay, now you're my special guest today. Tell me why you've chosen to bring Harry along.
So Harry and I have very similar sort of roots in the industry itself, but also because of the industry, we've become very good friends. So I thought, bring someone that comfort animal sort of thing. Perfect. And here he is.
Jay, tell me, where did Jen... First of all, Harry, sorry, welcome.
Thank you. No, pleasure
Top
to be
DJ,
here.
love watching you on TikTok.
Thank you very much.
Generations or Gen Z Events, where did it come from? Where does the name stem from?
So obviously it stems from the longer representation being Generation Z, and that does represent in
You're
my...
telling me how young you are now, aren't you?
I don't give anything away.
No, well, if you're Generation Z, you've got to be you're obviously born in the 2000s.
Yeah, so literally born year 2000.
I'm scraping in there.
Are you scraping in, Harry?
Just in.
So that's perfect. So basically, you're the new generation, generation of event people, and this is you sort of making your mark. Harry, tell me, DJing for you, I've known you for a number of years, but the DJing side of things, where did that sort of start with you?
Well, actually, at a young age, so from my bar mitzvah, that's where I got the inspiration. I saw obviously the whole crowd and how it was the reaction from the DJ towards the audience. And I thought from that age that it would be quite nice to get involved in behind the scenes as well. So in school, when I went back, I started to get involved with lighting, technician work. And that's where it kind of led me on the path of starting with the music side of it. Obviously, it took me a few years to find out that I wanted to do the music side of it and not the technical side. And slowly, I built up a nice reputation, did a few kind of small birthday parties, enjoyed it. And I think that's kind of the kind of inspiration that led me to where I am today.
It will come as no surprise to all of you, because Jay, you started as a DJ, didn't you, once upon a time? And I'm gonna let you into a little secret. If you look on the screen, there you go. That is 1983. I had Big Apple discos. Can you? Everybody started. Yeah, the Big Apple discos. Music for all occasions, very reasonable prices.
Love it.
You wouldn't put that on a card these days, would you? What do you think, Jay, stands you apart? I mean, I've seen your work, and there's a reason why I've invited you on to the podcast. But what do you think stands you apart from sort of some of the other event planners out there?
Yeah, I mean, look, on our social medias, I like to use the wording specifically, not your typical event planners. And that is more because I don't see myself as a sort of traditional style event planner. For me, it is about more storytelling than sort of a tick box exercise of you must have this, and working each event to the individual itself, whether it is a wedding, which is about two individuals coming together and bringing a bit of their own personality in there, or it's a private party bar mitzvah where, as I say, with a bar mitzvah specifically, it is about coming of age, bringing together all the best things of this young individual's life, and creating a story. They've got their own story to tell. We're going to tell a story on the night of the event as well. And I think that's what people have started to hone into. It is very much about finding someone that gets them. People buy from people. People understand people. And I think by taking a little bit more time to understand an individual allows definitely me to get stuck into that person's story and develop these ideas. It's not me coming to you going, you must go with a theme, you must go with this, you must, for me, it's wouldn't it be cool if we did this? You know,
and the
having
creative idea, Jay, with let's just take, I mean, creatively, I think sort of private parties, and you mentioned bar and bat mitzvahs. It gives you a canvas over and above a wedding, perhaps, to be a little bit more creative
100%.
because the kids are young, they're into different things, and you can hone on the personality. Where do the inspirations come from when you sort of meet with a family? What do you take from that?
So for me, it very much is about that sort of initial conversation. Typically, you know, I understand the mediums of things like Zoom and online meetings and stuff, and they're brilliant for a purpose. But actually sitting down with someone and understanding them, you know, for a child's point of view, it's very different to an adult's point of view for an event specifically. You know, those children walk into an event, they've got three things in mind. What can I eat? What can I destroy, and what can I have for free?
Yep.
You know, it's
Yep.
the three things that go through definitely a child's brain. But for me, it's also about bringing adults to that childlike state of mind to understand what it is that their children are going to enjoy on the night of the event as well.
It always makes me laugh when I go for client meetings and the parents sit there and they say, right, so my daughter, she's into hair braiding, she loves this, that and the other, and the kids just sit there and go, no, I'm not, and then they give you a whole different reality of what they really like. That's sometimes
100%
quite interesting to sort of where you get to. Harry, for you, your interaction with families in terms of ahead of the parties, how does it work with the DJing side of things?
So ultimately, when the clients propose that they want to get me for their event, function, whatever it may be, corporate event, I make sure that they're happy and confident knowing that they've got the right person. So I always tell them, let's meet before, or at least have a meeting, because ultimately I want them to book the right person. Obviously, yes, I do enjoy doing every job, but they need to also know that they've got the right DJ. So I go and meet them, make sure that they're on the same page as me. We do a running order if maybe there's not an event planner on the job, or if there is, I coordinate with the event planners just to make sure that we're all on the same page, and then we'll go from there and build a nice relationship.
Fabulous. Jay, for you, I asked you to drop me some media. I'm going to pop a little video up on the screen. It's just a sort of like a talk through. You're obviously going to send me something you're extremely proud of. This was a party I know I saw across your social media recently. Just talk me through the events and where the idea came from for this.
Circus-inspired event, and for me, it's having that understanding once again where the child's mind frame is. As I say, adults have a very different perspective about what their children want and things like that. And actually, this was quite different. Whereas the parents turned around to me and said, we don't necessarily want a party. This is about the kids. So we sat down with the kids and said, in an ideal world, what would be your ideal event? What would be your dream? And they turned around and went, we love the circus. We're into our gymnastics. We're into this. We love the idea of loads of performances throughout the evening. And for me, I went back, had a look at, and for me as well, I'm a very into my performance, circus roots, things like that as well, in terms of theatre, lighting, sound, staging. So all of these things play a very important role in the sort of storytelling of this event. But for me, it was taking a space that people knew and they'd been to quite regularly and going, how can we physically take them to this space, this place that we want them to believe that they are? And that's, walking in there, the senses, the smells we focus on as well. It's not just, visually it looks nice. It's from the moment you are called downstairs, having that ringmaster, the multiple series and layers of entertainment, from interactive entertainment elements being the fairground and sideshow stalls to circus performers. We had, just to name a few, even down to the food side of things, working with the caterers to display that food in such a way that it would be a concession stand from a circus itself.
With an event like that, so that I would probably suggest has a reasonably generous budget. How do you manage budgets with your clients? Because when clients come and see us, and I'm sure when they come and see you, as soon as you come up with an idea, you're spitting out ideas and they're going, oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. And then all of a sudden you put a budget together. And how do you manage that? The expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
100%. I think the thing for me, as I say, is it very much is not necessarily reinventing the wheel every single event, but once again, people have certain things that are important to them as sort of a list of priorities. You know, for some people, the food is the main thing. They need to make sure that their food is of that absolute immaculate standard and presentation and this, that and the other. Whereas for other people, it's more about the party, the entertainment and those layers. So I like to call it the nice to haves versus need to haves.
Yep.
And creating a sort of shopping list of ideas. You know, for me, I'd rather give you everything as sort of listed ideas on a piece of paper and strip it back and work.
Yeah,
with
like
that.
a pick and mix.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and once again, that does come into the sort of personal preference side of things. You know, people will turn around to me and go, look, for me, this is not as important as this. And can we have a look at that, or could we have a look at that nearer to the time? But for me, at that moment that we send the say proposal out, that is a ready to go event. You can always pick and choose bits and pieces within that and substitute, change and come back to things. But for me, it's consciously those layers. You know, we can always come back and add T-shirts later down the line.
Sure.
But fundamentals of the event are always there, and working on that basis.
Now, although in years you're relatively young, you're actually very experienced because you've been doing events for a number of years, haven't you?
I've done it since I was 10.
Yeah, I mean, talk about entrepreneurial. where did 10? What were you doing at 10?
So it very much stemmed from, and I have these sort of memories very vividly. It started from the age of actually like 3 or 4, where I used to have children's entertainers who would do my parties. I'd come home and my poor parents would have to sit through the same party again as I replicated line for line
Fantastic.
exactly what was going on.
Harry, you're so pleased you didn't know him then, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, a bit embarrassing. I might
Need
have
new
to-
audience members. And, you know, from that, you know, it very much developed. I actually started very much in the children's entertainment world. So I did that all the way through sort of to the middle of secondary school, where I turned around and went, you know what, I actually much prefer the DJing. And my audience was growing with me. Because bearing in mind, at the age of sort of 10, the kids' parties that you're doing, I mean, the kids are sort of 4 to 5, so they're not ridiculously much younger than I was. So
Is this with your parents driving your equipment round with you?
very much so. You know,
where it
the
all
best
started.
day of their
Familiar
life.
stories,
The
yeah.
best day of their life was when I got my driving.
I bet it was, yeah. Freedom
past
for
that,
them.
you know, it was like, right, you're off.
Weight lifted off their shoulders.
Correct. I mean, there's me trying to shove everything in a Fiat 500. But it very much stemmed from that. And my sort of fascinations and obsessions were very much around music, around theatre and magic. So 3 sort of similar, working hand in hand, but different sort of elements of events. And yet from there, it was very much that obsession of understanding. I'd walk into an event and I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily experience it from a guest point of view. I would be scanning that room going, that's this. I understand how that goes together. That light up there is fixed here and this, that and the other. And essentially growing my knowledge by understanding those individual components.
Yeah.
Very much.
And at what point did you sort of do what Harry hasn't necessarily done, or probably won't do, maybe? Not that I want to speak for you, but you've sort of educated yourself up from being a DJ and saying, I'm now going to full plan as well.
Yeah.
At what point did that come?
So I think the thing for me is, from a young age, whether I was doing kids' parties and someone turned around to me, can you provide the balloons? Yes, no problem. And you'd go out and you'd get the balloons, you'd load them up into your car. Can you provide the tables and chairs? Yeah, no problem. I'll sort,
All of a sudden, your parents are getting a van instead of
very
a
much
car.
so. It got to the point. I mean, we've now got our own facility with warehousing, officing, and things like that as well. But for a long time, it was run from the house, and my parents would turn around going, "Well, there's a van waiting outside for you at 6 o'clock in the morning, ready to take you to the venue." So it has been a sort of natural progression side of things. But for me, as I say, it has been it's been about 12 years. So I'm 22 now.
Yeah.
So doing it since
Which
I was
obviously
10.
still sounds very, very young.
Yeah.
But I acknowledge the fact that I know you've done this for a very long time.
Yeah.
So you can't judge experience by necessarily the age that you just happen of the year you were born. Yeah. Harry, for you,
Yes.
is planning something you eventually want to go into, or are you really stuck on the music?
For me, I think I touch upon it every now and again, but I want to make sure that I focus on the music because that is what I specialise in, and I don't want to be doing everything. And obviously, as Jay's example, he's taken a step back from the DJing side of it to focus on the events to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And that's the same for me. So for now, DJing, music, that is the career that I'm taking.
And you DJ for, I mean, you're booked by party planners across the board, aren't you? And you're booked by clients directly as well. Yeah.
Mainly, I would say not mainly, but majority are through direct bookings. But yes, a lot of party planners are in contact with me at the moment. So.
And for you, Jay, one of the things on the secret world of events is, advice to those people who are planning bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings, celebrations, whatever it's going to be. What would you say perhaps is your top 3 tips or advice when you start out planning?
I think number 1 is don't rush into anything. There are, as we all know, there are various different suppliers, various different party planners and routes that you can take for your event. I think a lot of people are quite easily influenced by friends and things like that, and keen to either replicate or do something very similar. Don't be afraid to push those boundaries a little bit and find someone that gets you. Whether that's someone like me who understands, whether it's your child, yourself, your beliefs, what's important to you and those sort of things, but find someone that's ultimately going to bring the best out of you and the best out of your event.
I think you said it earlier, people by people, and I think that's one of the most important things when you're working with a planner is that you click with them and feel like they're doing the best for you. You want to have that person on board.
100%.
And what about sort of in terms of the suppliers you use? Do you sort of surround yourself with a sort of a team of suppliers, your sort of go-to people, because that works well for you and your clients?
I think it very much, once again, it is about the people. For me, I mean, Harry and I work so well together for this exact reason, because on the night, it's very much everyone has that understanding of each other and the best way that people work together. Harry and I, from a performance point of view, as a DJ, you're sort of limited to the DJ booth in essence. So you need someone who's out front managing that event, making sure that all of the things that you need taken care of are sorted so that he can focus on what he needs to do. And I think it's very similar, in other aspects of the event, in the same way, sort of videography, knowing that event is being captured, that peace of mind of we've gone to all, through this journey with the client, and we're rest assured that this is being captured in the right way, that they have those memories to last a lifetime. And there is various different components that have, that sort of layers of sort of importance. And I do think it very much is, whether it is myself working with people that I enjoy working with and things like that, but also, clients will go, look, my friend runs such and such. Having them on board also gives it that personal feel.
What advice would you perhaps give to clients on budgets and understanding budgets? Because I think there's there's various different levels of events. It doesn't make a party any better or any worse on the funds you spend, that's for sure. But there's very different degrees. I mean, is your advice when you sit down with a client perhaps to say, do you know where your budget limits are? Or what do you want to spend? Is because we can all go and, as I said, write down all the big ideas. Is that important at the outset? Yeah,
I think just knowing, sort of, I say a boundary, but sort of where you would like it to sit. For me, it's not coming in and forcing an idea upon you going, look, you need to spend this in order to have a good event. That's never the case whatsoever. But what I do suggest to people is, there is various different levels of catering, various different levels of videography, various different levels of photography, venues, all these sort of things. And I think, once again, it is those layers of importance, those levels of this is important to me. So let's have a look at the venue first. This fits within this leaves us with this. Then let's have a look at catering. And, as I say, there is various different ways, and I don't have a minimum spend policy or anything like that, because I truly believe that, some of the best events that we've done have been in really random places, but it's been about the people and the things that we're able to do with the venue itself to tell those stories. So yeah, I don't think it's very much about you have to spend this, and I do get that call the whole time. How much do we have to spend? How much should we be spending? And I don't really think that's...
Well, the obvious answer and I'm not a planner at all, but of course, as someone in the events industry, people, when you go and see them, and you could be in an initial call maybe even before they have a planner, and they're asking to recommend a planner, people do work because they may feel that they want to book their video in advance because a year in advance is enough to do it. But the questions that come in, and I always say to them is, well, how many guests do you have and how many heads are you feeding? Because that, for me, is your starting point.
Yeah.
Once you know, and are you kosher or not kosher? Because that's the starting point. And then that really is going to determine what your budget is, I think, in terms of what's available for the rest.
Yeah, I think, look, the thing is, and I think post-COVID world, there has been a lot of change. Certainly in venue side of things, there's not as many venues out there or accepting of certain style events. You know, it's if you're going to a West End hotel, a lot of them don't actually necessarily welcome outside catering, or they will try and say, look, the rate is always going to be better by using in-house catering. That's always been a thing, but it is very different now. I think there's less venues, certainly within a certain bracket of guests. So sort of when you get to that 150 person, you jump up to these absolutely huge venues.
Yeah.
And sub 150 people, depending on what area you're in, there's also sort of limitations with the ability of these venues to cater, because they get booked up so quickly.
Well, the popular venues, certainly around sort of the northwest London area,
100%.
are extreme and very good.
Of course.
The Engine Room has turned into an amazing, venue, and N20 was equally, as popular. Harry, for you, is there a favourite sort of venue for you to sort of where you love to go, where you love to DJ, or you feel most comfortable?
To be honest, not really. I kind of make sure that I'm happy with the venue kind of standards, obviously, to produce the same kind of outcome for every venue, to make sure that I can do it. Obviously, I've had experiences in the past where I turn up to venues and the speakers are from in-house, and unfortunately they're not quite up to the level where you need to create that atmosphere. And yes, obviously it's down to me to create the atmosphere, but speakers and quality of them always helps to create the right level. I don't want to be deafening people, and sometimes that is a problem. And I've seen it in some venues where they haven't got adequate equipment, and the clients are happy to use it, but not realising that it will impact on the event itself.
What about venue with sound limiters as well? Because that is a thing. I remember Quaglino's back in the day.
Yeah.
Party on a Saturday night, you'd be limited on the sound because of the residents who live upstairs.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a big problem, and there is ways around it. A lot of people, I think, that are going to venues with limiters are more party for enjoyment rather than an actual club night. They are going to have entertainment there, so it's just going to be music in the background. If people want to dance, then they can, and I think that's ultimately where those venues fall into place now. But it is a major problem. It's kind of difficult, when everyone's singing and dancing along, you can't control how loud people are. You can only control how loud the speakers are. And I've had it maybe 5 years ago or so, where I was in different venues that had limiters, and people would start singing along, clapping along, and that would set the limiter off, and I can't control that.
Yeah, I remember being in a venue once where the general manager stood there with the sound in decibels, and he said, you need to turn the music. I mean, obviously nothing to do with me, but you need to tell someone to turn the music down. I said, that's people singing. I don't know how we're going to... Well, you need to bring the music down because to adjust for the singing. And it was, there weren't very many parties there after that kind of thing. Jay, for you, this is a little video that appears up on your home screen, some gorgeous events. You, I think, looking at you from the outside, I feel like you've stepped up. I feel like over the last couple of years, certainly since lockdown, I feel like the quality of the events I'm seeing means you're getting bigger budgets to do jobs, and you're generally sort of breaking up and being far more noticed. What do you sort of attribute that to?
I think, look, and a lot of these events we do, I like to think, that if I was to be able to redo an event again, I would do it in such a way. For me, an event is not over until people stop talking about it. So for me, it's about preserving that and sort of what's going to elongate people talking about, this event. What's the magical elements that go into that? And once again, from my sort of youth growing up, that sort of thing, with interest in theatre, magic and things like that, I think people start to see that passion for it, and I do like to believe that a lot of these events have those key elements within it.
I love the superhero one, by the way. I'm just saying, when someone comes to me and says they want to do a superhero event or a Marvel or a DC or a Star Wars, I'm literally like, where do we go?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Who's got the best props?
Yeah, I mean, basically, some of the stuff that is absolutely sensational. What I would say, what I really most admire about you, Jay, and I see you from afar, okay, because we don't work that much. In fact, I don't think I've ever done a job with you, or maybe a couple, a couple over the years, but we don't see you every week. What I most admire about you is I know how hard it is for planners of a certain level to break up to bigger budgets. For me, probably the biggest standout is White Paper in the space. White Paper came around, and now they compete with the very best for the jobs. And I really see you sort of pushing those boundaries and pushing for those bigger budgets. But what do you think it is that, is it your creativity? Is it what you bring to the table in your team?
I think so, yeah. I mean, all of the sort of creative concept side of things for Gen Z events specifically is done by myself, and it's my weird and wacky brain and levels of obsession. I mean, when the phrase sleepless nights is involved, it typically, that is me.
There's sleepless nights, and there's also event anxiety.
Correct. And I think
we all get event anxiety, right?
Yes. Yeah, it happens.
I think it's I don't drink caffeine or anything like that. I stay well clear of it. So for me, it is about the adrenaline, and I genuinely get a buzz off of producing, these events, getting behind these concepts, getting excited about things. I'll sit there for hours on end. I'm almost like a mad scientist sitting there with a piece of paper, the lamp, and drawing things out on paper.
Yeah.
For me, it is that level of obsession and wanting to, not necessarily wanting to please, but to excite other people. I think it is very much that Walt Disney mentality, those levels of you're going to walk into a Disney park and it's not just the visuals of, oh, this looks brilliant, but you can go up to a door, you can feel the grain on the door. It's not that you can just feel the grain on the door, but you can knock on it and someone will, come out.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail. I mean,
100%.
I'd probably say when we work with planners and creatively we all sit around the table to come up with concept that may involve screen content, theming, live with not live. It's about viewing it sometimes from the guest perspective. When I walk in that room, what do I want to do? Sensory. I want to see wow. I might want to smell wow, touch it, see it. That whole, you're absolutely right, that whole sort of Disney experience, amazing. Is there one sort of rule you live by in your business?
Don't be afraid to try. As I say, we differ from most other event planners in that we've got we've got a warehouse. We've got all of our own lighting, sound, staging equipment, that sort of thing. And for years, I was very much a supplier to suppliers and things like that. And, for me, it is about being experimental. The reason I really wanted and my goals were to get this facility was that we can try things. We have the ability to pull a light off a shelf, put someone in front of the light and create a shadow, on a very sort of minimal level. Yeah. But we also have the ability to string up smoke systems and create projection mapping and all this sort of stuff within our warehouse. So we're not limited necessarily by other people's equipment and things like that. For me, it is, and once again, going back to that theatrical side of things and the understanding of lighting, sound, and Harry and I have very similar, we get on very well. I feel like, at school we were very similar sort of kids. We were those kids who were pulled out of class to do the lighting and sound for the school shows and things like that. But it does very much stem from that. I remember doing things at school where the teacher would be like, look, we've got an end of year production. We want you to be involved. And I would go, okay, well, can I take that as a project myself and put real magic into it and things like that? So it is very much being experimental. Don't be afraid to push those boundaries and just try things. Yeah. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
talking about kids who fit in boxes, this is an amazing story. I had a young man came to me when he was 13, after his bar mitzvah. We got to know the family really, really well, and I got to know Jack. And Jack loved all the video equipment. He loved the editing. And I said, come and have some work experience, with absolute pleasure. 14 years old, bowls into our offices, does a bit of editing. And I said to him, Jack, you're really very, very talented. By the way, I'm happy to give you pocket money because there's some little things you can do for us, which I thought worked really well. Do you know what Jack does now? Jack is now 24. Jack is head of video for ABBA Voyage.
Amazing.
Wow.
So when I needed tickets to go to see ABBA Voyage, Jack told me, he didn't talk me tickets, but he told me where to sit, and he's in charge of all video production.
Amazing.
And you're right, kids kind of have little boxes, and those kids who are going to, where they could progress to.
Most of our team, believe it or not, and I get, sometimes I get a little bit of sort of, not necessarily backlash from it, but I get a lot of people going, your team are quite young. I mean, the average age of our team setting up an event, 17 or 18, because those are the individuals that will put their heart and soul into producing these events. Obviously there's key members amongst them who are, have got years and years of experience within the industry. But for me, I'm picking up on those passions and that excitement in the same way that I wish someone did when I was younger.
Yeah, well, it does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? Generation Z. Yeah, Z.
100%.
Yeah.
I welcome it. I think, and Harry will agree with me, and we have this discussion. Harry and I speak every single day without fail, and we have this discussion every day. We wish there was more people in the industry, in terms of DJs and producers and people coming up with these, whether it's a photo booth, creating something in their garage and going, yeah, we're going to produce that for an event. We want to see that, and I think there has been a big gap, definitely sort of post-COVID world, where there hasn't been a lot of that.
Yeah, there's no producing of new products either. It's like slowed down a lot. A lot of people are trying to find new products.
We are itching.
Before COVID, it was product after product coming out. Now it's like really hard to find that product that's going to boom.
We did our first hologram, as in our first filming for a hologram to be beamed into an event, which was very clever, because we've done holograms before with the whole sheet and everything else, but this was the first time it's new tech, but very, very clever. So I don't know if sometimes it has to become cheap enough also by scale and cost to do. There's something that I saw over lockdown that I've seen quite a few times, which I think will be incredible for an event. I'm waiting for the one client to come along and say that's great, but basically they're spinning fans with lights on, and you can create the holograms, and you can have a wall of them. And I think that will, we've all got LED walls, we've seen them all at parties. I think somewhere within a party soon, they've become cheap enough that it will be amazing, or a table centre that does it, or something like that.
No one can complain about aircon ever again as well. It's like a physical.
Absolutely. Is there one particular event, Jay, that you are most proud of that you've done?
We did an event last weekend, funnily enough, and that was my first public event.
I saw
sort
it.
of general public, sort of not invite, not guest list or anything like that.
It was in Mayfair, wasn't it?
So it was German Street, just off Regent Street. This was one of our first, as I say, it was my first outdoor solo sort of production.
I saw Harry with hat and gloves on, trying to stay warm while he's DJing outside.
We got everyone the little warmers that you put in your gloves and things.
They worked.
They worked. So that's really fresh for you then. So and super. I guess when you are creative and making great events, I won't say week in, week out, but a number of times through the year, each one becomes.
It was it really was refreshing. It was a whole different set of challenges. For us, it wasn't just a marquee outside in the summer. This was no shelter, all of the elements, and it was on one of the coldest days of the year. We were there from 3:30 in the morning, left the following day at 1 o'clock in the morning. Teams of people, live entertainers, and once again you've got the same conversation. Look, it's going to be cold, wrap up warm, and this sort of thing.
Sure.
But you've got 2,000 people on rotation throughout the day.
Now, if you're listening to The Secret World of Events on your favourite podcast channel, don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, just hit the bell. You'll be notified when the next episode's coming out. For you guys, moving forward, how do you see 2023 panning out for you, both?
Okay, yeah. Do you want to start?
Well, I was just going to say, I think there's a lot more structure to it. There's less rushing, trying to fit events in. I think post-COVID, there was a lot of events that got delayed. And that is a major problem because people were trying to find dates that don't clash with their friends. because obviously you want to celebrate with your friends as well. And I think 2023 is going to add more structure into the kind of events side of it, and allow our kind of mid-weeks to kind of not be as busy. Post-COVID,
That's the one thing that did
Yes.
dramatically change, didn't it? Was like midweek events.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Well, some Fridays, Saturday and Sundays were pretty much fully booked. So I think it will allow everyone to take a step back, to actually plan, take time with their events, not just rush into it and say, you know, we've got this amount to spend on the event, we want it on this date. Now they can actually think of ideas that they want, maybe chuck a few into the hat and pick a few at random.
And for you, Jay, 2023?
I mean, I know what I'd like it to be, but whether it does, you know, sort of pan out that way, I think it is very much, as you say, post-COVID, there was that mad rush of sort of, we need to just book things really quickly, and everything was quite last minute. I think taking a step back, and certainly we're seeing sort of people booking further into the distance now again. You know, it was very much sort of 3-month lead times.
Lead times have shrunk.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's been a lot more sort of people going, you know what, I'm just going to get my name in the calendar. You know, certainly with event planners and venues and caterers, I'm going to get my name in the calendar, and we'll revisit it and we'll have a look, you know, a little bit further down the line. But at least I know who I'm getting the gist of and things like that. Because I think there has been a lot of sort of rush decisions. And certainly from our side of things, it's been, you know, we want to make sure that everyone's got as much attention as we can possibly give them. But having those sort of longer lead times, longer build-ups to the events, actually give people more of a chance to enjoy the
100%.
experience.
We're starting to see the green shoots of that now.
Yeah.
This is probably the first 3-month period that we're seeing bookings well over a year ahead.
Yes.
So 2024 for bookings, funnily enough, is far busier now than 2023, which is only 2 weeks away. Although this show will be going out in 2023, 2024 is already looking very busy. So that just tells me clients are starting to think ahead. And also from a booking perspective, where there's only a certain amount of jobs you can produce on an evening, if the date's gone already and people are booking, that will encourage other people to start, you know, booking.
And I think it goes back as well to sort of what we were talking about earlier, and people being a bit more experimental with their events and trying to push the boundaries a little bit. Get your suppliers on board early, start having those conversations, but things are going to evolve over time. They're going to change. You know, if we're a year away from your event, let's get the fundamentals booked. Let's get your venue. Let's get your caterer. Let's get all these components booked.
Also, clients get to go to other venues and other parties, and they get to see what they do and don't like.
Inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I think that's one of the key things of all of this is being inspired.
Yeah, if you're not in that, you know, I'm looking at people last year who, when they came to see us for events, you know, their children were 10 prior to lockdown.
Yes.
They had no idea what went into a bar or bat mitzvah. And
didn't know what they liked.
Absolutely.
But it's the same thing as well. I mean, we certainly had a lot of delayed events, and what they try and do is sort of just go, let's do the same event. And I'm encouraging people, look, should we have a look at what we've put together? Should we revisit it? Because your child is now 3 years on. You know, we were doing bar mitzvahs for people who were going on 15, 16.
Yeah.
You know, and those children, you know, that gap between 13 and 15 is probably one of the biggest changes in your life.
Absolutely.
So, you know, going back, revisiting things, not thinking, you know, what we book now is what we have to go with 12 months down the line, but sort of delving in like a story, going through each chapter and going, this is how we want this to start. This is how we want the middle of the story to be, and we want to end it like this.
Now, Harry, talking about trying things and you know concepts, I've got something I want to try on you.
Oh God, here we
Nothing
go.
like putting you on the spot, but I thought this could be quite fun because you DJ at lots of events and you know you're listening to music all day long. So we're going to do finish the lyric.
Oh, do I have to sing it?
Well, I was going to say you can just say it, but feel free to sing. I've got a feeling that
Tonight's going to be a good night.
Very good. Hands.
In the air sometimes.
Oh, no, I had down. Hands.
Touching hands?
Touching hands.
Oh, fine. All right, well, I had can't hold us.
Okay. Today.
Is going to be the day.
Very good. Turn up the music. Turn down the lights.
Ooh. Turn up the music. Turn down the lights. Maybe you were out of key. That's probably why I didn't go.
All right. Do you want me to sing it?
Yeah.
Turn up the music, turn down the lights. Lizzo.
Oh, it's about damn time.
Yeah, there you go. I've got a feeling I'm going to be all right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll give you my all-time worst ending to a party. Ready?
Oh, wait, hang on. Don't stop me now.
Yeah, I was going to say
Did I just ruin
it? Tonight, I'm going to have myself a real
that's
good
brilliant.
time. You did fantastic.
That's
Guys,
brilliant.
each and every week we have questions in from Instagram, and I want to run through a few of them with you. Harry, you're going to be amazed. Actually, most of them have been aimed at a DJ. This one comes in from Blake Ezra, who's a wonderful friend and a fantastic photographer. Are you fed up now of Sweet Caroline?
I think in about a month or so I will be, because I don't like when people go, oh, it's that song coming on. I want everyone to enjoy the song. And yes, for the first probably 6 months of the trend, everyone was loving it. But now you've got that 20-30% of guests that go, oh, not this song again. So yes and no. I think another month and I'm going to drift away from it. A lot of people play it every night when they DJ. I haven't played it in my last 3-4 events. Just trying to be unique and keeping, the trends flowing.
Let's go on to the next question. The question number 2. What's the most stressful thing about your job, Jay?
I mean, I wouldn't say the most stressful. I think the thing for me is that the sort of, I think when you get into events, it's that understanding of it is a live event. Anything can happen,
And usually does.
Yes.
Correct. And I think it's not necessarily the stress side of things, but for me, it's very much that mentality of preparing as much as possible. Failure to prepare to fail. That sort of thing. For me, it's what if, what could happen, what is the worst case scenario? How can I prepare for that? And I can sleep at night knowing if I've got my fingers on those holes and things like that, making sure that those events are going to happen. So for me, I don't think it's the most stressful thing, but I think it's more about the knowledge that all is taken care of.
Perfect. Next question is top 3 crowd floor fillers at a wedding.
Well, I would have to go with, the first one is probably going to be I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, that one works quite well. Don't stop till you get enough.
Okay.
And then I would say the final one, probably Everybody, Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, okay. I guess also it depends, because I was thinking while I was reading the question, it depends how old the crowd are. Because if it's maybe an older wedding and they're 70, it's definitely not going to be. But yeah, for youngsters, there's nothing very modern in that. It's all basic classic songs, aren't they?
Yeah,
It's
I think ultimately that's how I kind of start my evening. I take people on a bit of an adventure, obviously reading the crowd at the same time. I'm not just playing from like a book. I read what's going on. But ultimately, you need to play music to be able to read the crowd. If you can sit opposite someone without speaking to them and tell me exactly what song they're going to want, it's going to be impossible. So I think reading the crowd is also ultimately...
Here we have another question from Ant Reed, 1977. How do you deal with music the kids want at a bar mitzvah that clears the floor of adults? That is a real thing.
Yes.
And I see that week in, week out.
Yeah.
You have to play... The kids want some sort of latest horrific song.
So there is ways, and get some notes down if you want to get my secrets.
Yep.
But ultimately, I take that 20 seconds or 30 seconds that the kids like, and ultimately they only know the chorus. They don't know the build-up. They don't know the crescendo that builds up to the end. They don't know any of that. They know the chorus. And then I make a bit of the song that I'm playing currently instrumental, and I put the lyrics for the kids in there. And just at the right time, the adults are like, what's going on here? They're still dancing along to the rhythm, and the kids are singing this crazy song on top of their kind of
So
dance
more
song.
than DJing, that's music producing.
Live, yeah. That's what I do
Fantastic.
live. Yeah.
What a great skill set.
Thank you.
Let's have a look at the next question. The one song you never want to hear again that you always have to play. That's actually from my team. They asked that. Because obviously we have that every week. The one song you never want to hear again that you always have to play.
It's the one we just spoke about.
Sweet Caroline.
No.
Don't Stop Me Now.
Yeah.
It is a big people pleaser.
It is. And I think that's one song, like not Sweet Caroline's a bit like, oh, it's come on again. But Don't Stop Me Now, people know it's the end of a good night.
Yeah.
It's kind of time to get on that dance floor for the final 15 to 20 minutes of the night, or sometimes the
It's your
last
call
song.
to action, basically, isn't
Yes.
it?
I mean, my family used to have a joke with me, especially when I obviously started off DJing side of things. They would message me when they knew it was approaching sort of 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock and "Don't stop me now?" ?
Right. Yeah, there we go. Where were we? Next one up. Do you meet with... They're all aimed at you, arts and creation.
Yes.
Do you meet with clients to listen to their playlist requests?
Yeah, so I'm very honest with my clients. I will tell them exactly what I think will work and what will clear the dance floor. But a lot of clients, they give me a playlist and they say, look, this is what we want. They put stuff in bold and they say, if you can't play it, don't. And I actually had this scenario on the weekend where the client gave me songs that I knew would clear the dance floor because ultimately their songs were for them.
Yeah.
And there is times where I can play them, so maybe I'll put them into the background music just to make sure they're played. But ultimately, I took my own kind of leaf out of their playlist, and they were over the moon with the kind of atmosphere. And I think that's ultimately down to me and the experience that I have is to create the atmosphere for them for that night.
Question number 7. We'll get one for you eventually, Jay. Why do some DJs not speak? Are you a speaker or a not speaker?
Yeah, I don't really shut up, to be honest.
You don't shut up. That's good. So I'm going to say this out loud. I do not understand a DJ that doesn't speak.
Yes.
I don't understand. I don't see the point because now you've got to get an MC in.
Yeah. I think it's down to, I would say, understanding of the crowd as well. I like to speak to the audience to make sure that they're enjoying the kind of journey of the evening. And it doesn't really make sense to me that DJs don't compare and obviously speak to the audience to make sure that obviously they're having a good time. It's not all about putting your hands up in the air and like sing along. It is about speaking to them, knowing that they're confident in you, and you can get some really cool reactions from speaking to the crowd.
What do you think about that, Jay? Do you book DJs who don't speak?
I mean, certainly when I was DJ, I was a DJ that did speak, and I would put myself into the same category as Harry in terms of personality DJs.
Yeah.
I think it's the moment the event starts or goes from reception to anything happening, there is an instant rapport between the DJ and the audience. And without that, it can feel quite disjointed, and people never quite know where to look. And it's where's the MC? Well, you know where the DJ is, but where's the MC speaking from? I mean, certain events do suit having separate MCs and DJs and that sort of thing. And once again, it does come back to that sort of scalability. You know, having a single DJ in a booth in a huge venue sometimes can get lost. But certainly for sort of intimate style events and sort of most parties, having a DJ that can interact with that crowd, that has that instant rapport and that connection side of things, typically they feel more welcome to come up to the DJ, have a conversation, go, look, can you play this for me? Will this work? And that sort of thing, as opposed to, oh, there was a DJ. I'm not sure who it was, but there was a DJ.
Anonymous.
Just to add into that as well, kind of against the kind of point is, I do sometimes like when there is a Toastmaster or someone there announcing the formalities.
Correct.
And it allows me to use my performance skills to the maximum, because obviously reading the crowd, knowing how I'm going to be speaking to them, it's not always the same. Sometimes it's a little bit more cheeky.
But you're versatile and adaptable. What I'm suggesting, or the question is suggesting, is some DJs just don't speak.
Yes.
And if you're booking him or her, you're basically booking it. You have to book an MC because nobody's going to connect. You're suggesting that it works for you because sometimes you can be freed up.
Yeah.
I guess the question is saying, maybe it comes down to confidence.
I think, yeah.
Let's go to the next question. Do disasters happen on events? And if so, how do you cope, Jay?
I think it's about having the right team, to be honest with you. And once again, it does go back to what I said before about the failing to prepare side of things. It depends what you class as a disaster. Because there's sort of baseline things which, as the client, you will notice. But there's other things that, from a guest point of view, will go unseen. So, you know, whether it's a power cut, whether it's something's happened outside food-wise or a medical emergency, all these sort of things, they can happen. It's a live event. it's about how you deal with them. So whether it's the power's gone in the kitchen because something's been overloaded, we need to shift the attention towards the dance floor. Let's get people dancing again for another 10 minutes while we sort out what's going on outside and things like that. So I think, certainly because of my magic background, I've learned sort of the art of misdirection. Look over here, look over here. Just, right, we'll shift the attention to over here.
And here's a rabbit.
It very much is sort of where to get people to look. And I think once you've been doing it for long enough, you start to realise, okay, well, this is what we're going to do to take people in this direction while we sort this is going on. So it does depend on what you call a disaster.
Okay, shall I give you a disaster?
Go for it.
I've seen quite a few over the years. Yeah. I've seen disasters all the way, and probably the biggest one I've seen, and it's nobody's fault. I don't know, but it was nobody's fault. But the middle of the marquee collapsed in on the dance floor, which then brought the bar down because the bar was freestanding, and of course there is no room for misdirection at that point. You've got a sunken middle of a dance floor. Yeah. And it turned out to be nothing that anybody foresaw. It was actually a newly laid property and lawn, and it sunk.
The foundation.
Literally, and the party did actually go on.
Okay.
Believe it or not, amazingly, because everybody from the event planner to the caterers just moved tables and shifted the party, and it was done seamlessly with obviously a lot of open mouths. But disasters do happen, and I think it's how people react and how professionals react to those sort of
100%.
things. Let's move on to the last question from Mishy D. What's your favourite venue for a party? Is there a favourite?
I don't think there is a favourite. I think the thing is that I think there's the opposite, in that if you're at the same venue every single weekend, you start to not necessarily lose inspiration, but it starts to become, we're here again. And even from the guest point of view, I get it a lot now where people turn around to me, well, we got another event. And it's the word another.
Yes.
We got another event here. We got another event here. I'm constantly looking for those new venues, and that's what excites me as well, is to walk into a space, do something that's, someone's never done anything quite like it, and then go somewhere else. You know what I mean? I know there's obviously limitations with the number of venues, but keeping it fresh, because even from the kids' point of view, once they know that there is a corridor that they can go and hide in, and they're back at that venue the next weekend, to try and keep them away from that particular corridor becomes a bit of a challenge, shall we say.
Yeah, worst job at a party? Security.
Yeah.
You know what? The golf courses, any golf course, if the kids find the way onto the green, they will be there most of the night.
Yeah. I had that once.
Did you?
They're lobbing golf balls, and it's like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. Well, safe behaviour of children at these parties for a whole nother event. Jay and Harry, it's been fantastic having you with me today. Thank you very much for coming down. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Secret World of Events. If you've enjoyed today's show, please do hit the subscribe button to make sure that you get the very next episode that's coming up. See you soon. Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
Everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail.